The NFL preseason kicks off tonight with 2 games, and we're going to highlight those young drafted prospects that you need to pay attention to and need to be watching out for. This and more coming up on today's episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout for being our everydayers. You know, I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. You talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, the other side to this dynamic jewel that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. If you can hear my voice, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to comment and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel over on Locked On NFL Draft DP. Preseason preview. That's what we're doing on today's show, man. We have a couple intriguing matchups as far as 2024 NFL draft prospects. We're going to talk about the Carolina Panthers versus New England Patriots, and then we're going to follow it up with the New York Giants versus the Detroit Lions. But DP, before we get into today's podcast, why don't you hit them with our title sponsor?
LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The New England Patriots and the Carolina Panthers face off, Keith, in a big storyline heading into this game tonight. No Bryce Young. Dave Canales said a couple days ago Bryce Young will not be playing in this game. Xavier Legette had like a little bit of a foot situation that had him day to day after a practice and everything. So he's not expected back till next week. The offensive line has been a little bit banged up, through the past couple of days at camp. So with no Bryce Young, that means that you got to put a lot of onus in terms of the young players. You look at, I think for me, I go right to Jonathan Mingo when I look at the offensive side of the ball, Keith, a guy that a lot of the talk was like, hey, he's running with he's the guy running with the ones. He's keeping Xavier Legette. He's keeping Jalen Coker, the undrafted rookie. He's holding back those guys from jumping in and leapfrogging him right now. There, a lot of reports say that throughout camp he's looked like a better route runner. And he's, like I said, we talked about this the other week. Steve Smith said he works out with him. He's been putting in that work with him. So this is an opportunity for him. Yeah, it won't be with Bryce, but now it's live bullets as we continue to talk about leading up to preseason for these young players. Jonathan Mingo, now go out here and show like what you've done in camp, route running, finding spacing, settling into zones, being a reliable big body target with the speed that he has. Now translate that into some on-field play during games. I think if he's able to do that, that'll be a good sign for this passing offense.
Yo, no, 100%. And it's something you don't want to say has to go like that, right? But you almost believe that it has to go like that just with the draft capital that they spent on him. And then plus just rounding out this wide receiver core overall, DP, I believe that is a situation that is a must need. And then, like you said, Xavier Legette being injured, that, hey, it's your time, right? Like let's show that you got better year over year when you're talking about in reference to Jonathan Mingo. So I'm really excited and intrigued to see what is the piece for it. And because I look at it from this perspective, is that I think in regards to Jonathan Mingo, that the evaluation was split, right? I had a later round draft pick grade on him. Some people had earlier. So it's like now we get usually it takes 2 years to decide on how you feel about a draft prospect. So let's see where he falls under that. But I think he can be such an important piece to what they're trying to do.
No, 100%. And like I said, it's not you don't want to say it's just week 1 of the preseason. You don't want to say a must have or has to.
Yeah, no.
But it kind of feels like it. You want to see him just take that. Even though, like I said, it won't be with Bryce. I think their backup quarterback is Jake Plummer, Jake Luton, Andy Dalton is still there. We'll see if Andy Dalton will be the starter tonight or not. But still, yet I want to see just Jonathan Mingo come out there and put his best foot forward. But Keith, the guy that you're talking about putting the best foot forward, Ike Ekwonu, who they drafted 2 years ago, at left tackle. And they say he's had a pretty decent camp, pretty solid camp. He's there were some comments, I think, after like this offseason, like coming into, I think, mini camp, where he said he was like resting on the performance from his rookie year, heading into year 2, and then the whole fiasco with the coaching staff. Ike Ekwonu is going to be big for this offense, period, simply because it's going to allow Bryce to feel comfortable in the pocket, number one, with the blind side, which helps him get the ball to Jonathan Mingo and Xavier Legette and Deontay Johnson. But when Jonathan Brooks, the rookie running back, comes back that they drafted in the 2024 NFL draft, they moved back up in the second round. I think after moving down, he's expected to return, I think, week 4 per Dave Canales. So Ike Ekwonu's performance is going to be big for everybody on this offense because the left tackle is such an important position. In your opinion, what do you need to see from Ike in this game?
I would go with consistency, DP, and consistency in the sense of the fact of I don't need you to be a consistent all-pro guy where you're like top 3 or 4 offensive tackles in the entire NFL, but consistency to where it says you're an NFL starter plus, right? And just kind of consistently live in that area. When you're a coach, you want to bank on the things that you know, right? Like when it's 3rd and 5, it's like I'm calling the plays that's most reliable that I know, right? And you want to put your best 5 offensive linemen out there. You want a baseline to know, hey, exactly what I have to work with. So when we talk about Ike Ekwonu, it's very difficult when you have the peaks and the valleys, right? Because I do get excited as a play caller, like, man, hey, Ike's rolling right now. I could let my quarterback do a 7-step drop, right, and dial up this deep pass. And yeah, you was rolling the first 2 quarters, and then now you get beat, right? Right when I call a 7-step drop, and now that whole drive is killed, and I'm banking on you just being consistent. So I just want a baseline of consistency for Ike Ekwonu. And like you said, the baseline doesn't have to be all pro. The baseline just has to be good. And I can't say that the baseline could be average just because we drafted you so high and the talent was there. So it's just improving things and just having a baseline of being a good starting offensive tackle in the NFL.
100%. We will close out this first segment, Keith, with some defenders for the Panthers, and we get into the Patriots and move on to the second game in the next segment. But DJ Johnson, who they drafted out of Oregon last year, is expected to be the starter opposite of Jadeveon Clowney at the outside linebacker edge rush position. Going to be a big opportunity for him to just kind of showcase that hey, move it there. I think they moved up for him in the draft, right? And that when you lose to Brian Burns, you bring in Jadeveon Clowney, so that's a good pickup. But can you be that opposite guy to collapse both sides of the offensive line? Can you put pressure consistently in this game with given the opportunities? Also, Trevin Wallace and our guy, a friend of the show, Shaw Smith-Wade, those 2 guys, Trevin Wallace at inside linebacker, second string, Shaw Smith-Wade, second string nickel. Those 2 young defenders have the athleticism, the physical ability to go out there and make plays. We talked to Shaw Smith-Wade, battle-tested, mentally tough young man, and Trevor Wallace has shown up pretty well from what I've read in camp, in zone coverage and in coverage in general.
Yeah, I like Trevin Wallace. I think I gave him a solid 3rd round grade. I think he has everything it takes to be a starting inside linebacker in the NFL. So if they're able to, insert him and he's able to play well as a rookie, I think that his stock just consistently rises, right? And he consistently grows and plays at a high level. But DP, you already called it, man. Let's keep this thing going and flowing. Coming up next, man, we're going to talk about the New England Patriots, right? Who are the young guys to talk about? We've been hearing about Javon Baker cooking everybody up. But, man, we're going to talk about those other draft prospects, including Javon Baker, for the New England Patriots that have to perform well in this first preseason game. Coming up next.
When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Guys, all you have to do is understand that LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Young drafted prospects to watch for the New England Patriots. Got to go to the second string. Got to go to quarterback to start off. Drake Maye. You know, when you select them third overall, Keith, there was a moment at camp, I think earlier this week, where while Jacoby Brissett was warming up or throwing passes, fans were chanting, "We want Maye," or "Start Drake Maye." And it's like, guys, pump the brakes, relax. Let's get through the preseason and see how he plays. But the coaching staff clearly has a plan for him. I think Drake Maye is going to be the guy that's going to have the spotlight on him the moment. Not even the moment he steps on the field. Like I would expect the camera to pan to him on the sideline while the first team is out there. He's the cash cow right now. So whenever that moment when he does come onto the field, I think for him it's just operating like, first of all, play controlled. Like we know first game jitters, it's the NFL, stuff like that. But you learn what you can't do in practice. Like there have been reports about him like holding on to the ball, taking risky throws, stuff like that at times. You've learned what you can't do in practice. Don't do those things in game, right? Like check out the passing plays to run plays. Know this offense. Get the ball out quick when you need to, right? Be able to toggle between velocity and touch and arm with your arm talent and everything. I think if he goes out there and just be consistent. I wonder how much he will play. I hope he gets a quarter to a quarter and a half, maybe. Like, because he's not expected to be your starter. You're starting Jacoby Brissett. So I want to see how much they play Drake Maye, but he's absolutely gonna have the spotlight on him majority of the night.
Oh, 1,000%. This is, because Bryce Young isn't playing, right? So this is his game. The fans are chanting for Drake Maye for a reason. And then obviously they're ultra familiar with Jacoby Brissett, right? So that's a kind of null and void situation as far as invoking emotional highs and lows, right? We know what we're getting, at the end of the day. I would say this, man. I think in with head coach Gerard Mayo, he's been playing this well, right? Kind of downplaying it some. And I think you just have to be consistent in your message to the fans, right? Because that's the things that with most owners, and I think Robert Kraft is different from that, right? Is that he's sitting there and he's at practice too, right? And the fans are trained for Drake Maye. And then he goes down to the coach's office and says, "Man, we got to play Drake Maye. That's what the fans want." And then the head coach is sitting there like, "He's not ready. Man, we got to play him." And it's like, right. All right, here we go. And then that's how you ruin a quarterback, right? Like that's the steps to the process of how this whole thing gets flipped on his head. But I would say that they've been handling it well with Drake Maye. When he does play, I do want to see just, it's the little things, right? It's getting in the huddle and getting out your first play, like saying it out loud in the crowd, in the environment. And this is something I think we talked about on the podcast, DP, the difference between practice and those kind of like scrimmage practices that you have, and you have the real game-like situations as far as the preseason. And Mike Tomlin said it. He was like, listen, and this is kind of talking about Mike Tomlin with the Steelers. He's like, listen, when it comes down to the QB race of Justin Fields versus Russell Wilson, he said that what's done on the, in preseason will be weighted more because it's more game-like. And I feel the same exact way, right? It's just it's different. It's just different from practice at the end of the day. So I think with Drake Maye, just getting him in the huddle, him being able to say the play out, right? Him being able to ID the defense, look at the bright light, say, "Oh man, I'm really playing NFL football." Take a deep breath, get your first play under your belt, and then move from there, right? I think I just want to see those steps in those processes. But DP, let's keep going to this wide receiver core. I think that's probably the most intriguing part, maybe, of this entire matchup, Carolina versus New England, right? The entire matchup is probably the most intriguing when it comes to young guys and draft prospects is the New England wide receiver core. So are there certain guys that you are looking towards and want to talk about more than others?
Jalen Polk, a guy who's had a strong camp, from every report that I've read for the most part. We talk about Javon Baker as well. Those two young guys While Juju Smith-Schuster has had drops and been a little bit inconsistent, while KJ Osborne has been solid, Jalen Polk and Javon Baker has done well in camp. And like you said, now it's okay, let's get them on the field. And I'm gonna be honest, I want them on the field with Drake Maye. Like I want them on the field when Drake Maye and that second unit take the field. I don't want Drake Maye throwing to Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't want him throwing to KJ Osborne. I don't want him throwing to some veteran that has a low ceiling of production to this offense. Let's get the young guys out there. Let's get that chemistry going. I think we talked about this shortly after the draft, and I think into rookie minicamp OTAs. You want to, whenever Drake Maye does take the field, if it's week 12, you want that chemistry with Drake Maye, Javon Baker, and Jalen Polk to be seamless. You want it to be strong. And that's how you start this preseason. So I want to just, like, again, the one-on-ones, all that stuff that we've watched and seen on Twitter and seen the reports, that stuff is good. Keep it, like you said, like Coach Tomlin said, it's the in-game situations. You're rarely going to see one-on-one with no defenders helping that cornerback. You're not going to see that on the field where you can just run whatever route you want. No, it's going to be design route concepts. It's going to be shading by the defense. It's going to be a safety somewhere hovering, whether it's over top, underneath, inside. It doesn't really matter. Now let's figure out how do you defeat that in 11 on 11, and this is not your teammate, so they can hit you. You know what I mean? They got to play full speed. Like, I think that's the part, I think, for rookies where it's like the way that they have kind of lessened the physicality of
training
NFL
camp
practices and training camp. It's that shell shock moment of first preseason game. It's full speed. So you run that slant and you catch it and you like, oh, I can kind of, get some yards after the catch. Like, no, that's not your teammate. That safety is for the other team, and he's going to trigger down and lower the boom on you.
He's going to bring you down. Yeah, he's going to bring you down any way he can. And I agree, DP, and that's probably why, you had the comment of, the difference between preseason games and practices, because I even know, what most of our practices, like the thought was, do not bring him to the ground, right? Thud him up.
Yeah.
And that was like on regular practice days, it was thud him up, don't bring him to the ground, right? And it was probably just our scrimmages where we went full speed. But even then, it was still, hey, don't hit the guys below the knees. You know what I'm saying? Or don't pile on them and things like that. So, like you say, preseason is like, listen, this guy's fighting for a check. So he's going to bring you to the ground however you're willing to go to the ground. So
exactly.
So he's going to get you there. But, I want to keep talking about a couple of guys with the Patriots, DP. First, the New England situation with the wide receivers, I agree with you 100%. But it's a young guy on his defensive front that I want to see how he's going to pan out and play. And that's a guy that we like. He's been in the league a couple years now, but Keon White, right? I want to see him continue to develop because I think he can be one of the best under the radar, versatile front defenders, right? Just, the athleticism coming out of Georgia Tech and everything else. I think he can just be one of the best football players that, is not really well spoken about, but just along that defensive front, he can play some really good football.
Yeah, 100%, right? Like, he was drafted, I think is this his second year?
I think second or third. Yeah, maybe a second year.
And now going from Bill to Gerard Mayo, like that's a little bit of a difference, but both defensive-minded guys. And I'm excited to see what Keon White is going to bring as well. And Keith, of course, Christian Gonzalez, want to see how much he plays now that he's back healthy. And kind of get his, hit the ground running, get his footing and everything. I got to go to the offensive line real quick. Caden Wallace, a guy that they drafted out of Penn State, I think day 2, that kind of caught a lot of people off guard to play tackle. And I've read the reports have been kind of inconsistent on him where I think he was pulled, he's been put to the second unit, stuff like that. Like they had expectations for him. And this is why you don't start Drake Maye, because you don't know what this offensive line is going to look like. You know what I mean? So Caden Wallace, I think for me, if I'm Gerard Mayo, I want him out there a good part of this game, like a quarter to 2. Because I want you to get as many reps and drives in this game as possible so we can get a full picture of what it looks like when you're on the field in gameplay, full speed against another opponent that's, again, not a friendly face. It's not a teammate, right? That's a defensive end, like you said, that's trying to earn a check. So that's what I'm looking forward to with Caden Wallace because, a couple years ago they drafted Cole Strange that we didn't really agree with. I don't want this to be the same situation for him where it's like, yeah, I don't know if this was the right pick where other offensive linemen or offensive tackles were available, or you could have gotten a little aggressive and gone up and gotten an offensive tackle that was more suited and prepared to play.
Yep, I agree 100%. DP, let's wrap this thing up. We're going to wrap it up with the New York Giants versus the Detroit Lions. Man, a lot of young guys in this matchup that expected to play. So coming up next, man, we're going to talk about the 2024 NFL draft prospects. A couple guys that were drafted in 2023 are headed into their second year. We're going to talk about those guys and what are the expectations in this New York Giants versus Detroit Lions matchup coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And with the summer winding down and school getting ready to start in a lot of states and cities, guys, there's no better time or place to go ahead and get in on some MLB action. Take your family to either your local or your out-of-state favorite MLB ballpark and have a great time before school starts back. Guys, take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thank you for making a Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. Detroit Lions versus the New York Giants, two teams that couldn't help but fight every day in practice this week, Keith. Now you get into an actual game where it's like, yes, let's get that frustration.
It was one
out.
of those situations, DP, where you're checking the timeline. You're like, wait, is that the same fight or is that a new fight? And then you second
new
again, like, damn, they had another fight? Like you just
I counted probably about 12, Keith. It was about 12 of them.
they do not like each other.
They clearly not. Let's start with the Giants, man. I think, of course, Malik Neighbors, right? The guy who's been tearing it up in training camp. You know what I mean? Whether it was his defense of backs, the defensive backs against the Detroit Lions and everything. He's had success all training camp, right? And now it's game time. Like, it's in game. So do we see a lot of Malik Neighbors? I will hope to see a decent amount of them to let's see that type of play.
That may be a fun young matchup talking about the future of the NFL because you get Malik Neighbors versus Terrion Arnold, or if Ennis Rakestraw is healthy, you get a Malik Neighbors versus
Emmanuel Mosley got hurt again, so he's out indefinitely. So I think Rakestraw might get some heavy playing time. A
lot of burn, yeah. So that'll be a good fun. Like I said, talk about the future of the NFL. Two guys that highly talented, highly skilled. Getting to see those guys go against each other.
100%, man. And I think for Neighbors, just go out there and do what you've been doing in camp, right? Continue to showcase not just the deep ball and the explosiveness, but that connection between you and Daniel Jones. Every time I see Daniel Jones drop back, it's going to Malik Neighbors, or you see him chucking it deep to Jalen Hyatt. And I'm like, okay, show me something, Danny. Like, show me something, Daniel Jones. Like, can you do this? Now, that's going to be the key. Can you do this in the game with a real defense that's not, again, your teammate? So I'm looking forward to that, Keith. I would say our guy. We talked about him a good bit. Theo Johnson. I saw a tweet from one of the beat reporters said that he's probably going to be tight end one, and that's how he looks. And he came off the PUP list after it was literally, I think, a couple of days after we did the pod and we talked about him.
Yep,
he came off the pup list, and he's been showcasing himself pretty well and throughout camp. And with your 6'5", 6'6", 250 pounds, with that athleticism, leaping ability, strength, blocking, and everything like that. As a late day 2, early day 3 pick that he was, I think it was a 4th round pick. The departure of Darren Waller now opened that door for Theo Johnson. I want to just see, okay, along with Malik Neighbors, because again, you got young playmakers, Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Theo Johnson, Malik Neighbors. This offense could be better than people expect if you can get all those young pieces clicking on all cylinders at the same time. Now, the offensive line is going to be very important to that. Keeping Daniel Jones upright. But I'm looking forward to seeing how much burn Theo Johnson gets, and then also how effective he's going to be, especially in the passing game.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a real key, right? Just to watch him move, and because the athletic profile was there. There were some things that you really liked, but also it wasn't fully unlocked at Penn State, so you're not even sure that you got the full glimpse of what Theo Johnson, what he could be, right, as a football player. DP with the Giants, you know, I'll be looking at. I'm gonna be looking at two young guys, man, Tyrone Tracy Jr., running back, and I'm gonna be looking at Eric Gray, running back, right? Because Devin Singletary, I think he's kind of, like we talked about Jacoby Brissett, right? You know what you're getting. But those young guys to be able to pass the torch, and potentially you're talking about year 3, 4, 5, and also, I mean, the HBO Hard Knock situation, right? Running back, if it's not, we threw it away, but it will be popular for the New York Giants just because of the discussions that were had around Saquon Barkley. So they better have a young succession plan in place, right? And can Tyrone Tracy, combination of Tyrone Tracy and Eric Gray get the job done? You evaluated Tyrone Tracy more than I did, but I did like Eric Gray a lot. And this is going into his second year out of Oklahoma. He was at Tennessee, transferred to Oklahoma, before entering the NFL. So I want to watch those two young guys, that tandem, and see what they're able to do as far as, creating some things, running behind this offensive line, to see if they have the juice to be able to carry this running game. And it was okay for the general manager to make the decision to go running back by committee.
100%. I really like Tyrone Tracy. I think that's a guy Giants fans definitely have to keep their eye on, because he can play former wide receiver, converted to running back, guy that can line up, wherever you need him to. But especially in like kind of a zone type of offense, he can run gap as well. But man, he's scheme versatile. He's explosive, got really good burst through the line of scrimmage. You know what I mean? Slow to, fast through. Everybody who knows running back play knows that phrase. He's a good player, man. I think those two guys, honestly, those two, him and Eric Gray, could be the future of this run game, with them not needing to draft a true bell cow, because teams are kind of hedging away from that, or have been hedging away from that over the years. Keith, I got to go to one last Giant, Andrew Phillips, the nickel corner out of Kentucky, a guy I liked a whole lot, and had one of the more underrated performances at the Senior Bowl that I don't understand why it wasn't talked about enough. This young man was out there battling. I remember watching him against some of the bigger body receivers and tight end. I'm like, he's getting it done. Sticky corner. He's physical. He plays aggressive. And I think, Wink Martindale isn't there anymore, but still, I think that this is a guy that we got to keep our eyes on. Keith, that's the Lions. I think after this practice, I think, this past Tuesday or Wednesday, I think it was reported the Lions starters won't see much play. But when you look at their depth chart, for me, I look at the defensive side of the ball. We talked about it. Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw, but Brandon Joseph, a guy they drafted was it last year? I believe last year, the year before.
Yeah, I think it was last year draft pick. But a guy that at one point, DP, you talk about just how year over year things get crazy, right? Like, he was slated as the number one safety a couple years ago, right? Like in just the NFL draft community, some people had him ranked as high as the best safety in the country. But yeah, he's on the Detroit Lions. Yep.
He was projected first round pick, and things didn't go the way that people expected it to, and then he didn't test the way people wanted him to test and everything. But he still was a solid football player. I think this opportunity for him, being behind Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch and everything like that, if they wanted to run some 3 safety sets, this is how you get on the field. Even though they have Ifatu Melenfangu as well, who's out there on that depth chart. But I want to see Ennis Rakestraw, Keith. I want to see Ennis Rakestraw. Of course, Terrion Arnold, we know how everybody knows how much we appreciate and respect his game. I want to see Rakestraw, man. I want to see him out there battling, whether it is against Malik Neighbors or Wan'Dale Robinson, whoever. I want to see him get his reps in and showcase why because remember he couldn't test or anything this previous draft season because he was hurt. He had an injury. So it's like, man, just go out there and prove why the hype coming into the Senior Bowl before he got injured, he was one of the more hyped corners coming into the Senior Bowl week. And
yeah, no, he was. I liked him a lot. I think I like, even with injury, DP, I finished off his grade with like a very high second round, like a top 50 prospect for me. That's how talented I felt he was, right? So I'm right there with you. I want to see him. I just want to see this tandem out there getting after it, because if they get this together and you potentially drafted 2 lockdown man-to-man corners, that sets up so many different things for not only just the defensive backs, but for the rest of your defense, right? What you can call as the defensive coordinator is Aaron Glenn, right? If I have 2 young guys back there that's ready to lock it low, ready to run, and I could play, press man, lock them up, and then do so many different things as far as creating pressure, sending 5 guys, sending 6 guys, and being able to cover on the back end. So I'm definitely excited about watching those 2 guys get after. But DP.
Oh, wait, one
Okay.
quick.
What you got? I'll see. I seen it in your eyes. Look like you might have had something. So
I got 2 offensive players that we got to keep. That everybody needs to keep on it. The slated third stringers. Remember, in the 2024 NFL draft, they drafted tackle 6'7", 354 out of British Columbia, Giovanni Mandu. They drafted him in the 4th round. And then the slot receiver without Amonra and Jameson Williams and those guys probably not playing at all. Isaiah Williams, the slot receiver out of Illinois. 2 players I'm going to keep my eye on.
He has talent too. He's a good football player. I evaluated him. He has juice to him. Like, I think this is a guy that can make real noise as far as playing significant snaps and significant moments at a high level for the Detroit Lions this year. So probably
some special teams too, like some return, especially with the return rule and stuff. Like, he might be an impact returner for him as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll be interested, DP, just to continue to watch the special team situation and see how different teams approach that and who they decide to put back there and things like that. But DP, I think I got it this time, man. Listen, that wraps up another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, and don't forget to subscribe at the YouTube channel over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at the Tanner Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. On tomorrow's show, we're going to preview the 3 games that we have on Friday night and the prospects from the 2023 and 2024 NFL Draft classes that you need to pay attention to. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.